everyone. Here together with Scott Hicko. I think all of you know him already, so no further introduction necessary. And we are going to just talk about again about developments that are quite relevant and important in that way. And of course, we're going to try to make associations between the past and the present, or the near future, if you want, about what happened back then, and how it comes back in the future, in the end times especially. So I would say let's shoot. Maybe we could start in the past, with what happened in the days of Noah, because the sons of Elohim, the so-called watchers, they came on the earth already in the days of Jared. Have you seen that already?
Yes.
And what is very important, what is very interesting, is Jared is the sixth from Adam.
Yeah, it's not that
Isn't
far
that
removed.
interesting? He is the sixth generation from Adam.
Yeah, it's not that far removed. But keep in mind, they lived for obviously a very long time.
Yes,
So it is a little different, but it's amazing to me how you can, looking back into the Old Testament, how you can trace. Yeah, and people always say, "Oh, how do you know the Bible's real?" Well, I mean, it's an account of the way people lived, and it's a detailed account. It's a
yep,
historical document. It matches all the prerequisites to say, okay,
exactly.
this is an accurate
Yep,
historical document of the way people lived, and you can
yep,
trace, Adam to Cain to Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah,
yep,
and then trace that all the way to Abram and Nimrod,
yes,
this
yes,
relationship
fantastic.
all the way down to the 12
Yeah,
tribes and all the way to
yeah,
Jesus. I mean,
yeah,
and then there's stories and real events that take place in all of these generations that are talked about by multiple different sources so that we know this is a historically accurate account
exactly.
of,
Yes,
of what happened. I mean,
yes,
this is as real as it gets. But
exactly. Yeah. And of
yeah,
course, scripture doesn't mention that much and doesn't go that deeply in these things. But what scripture mentions is truth. And we can also read apocrypha books, but we need to know that while I think quite a portion of that is also true, but another portion is not true. So
mhm.
we need to be handling that with more care, of course, in terms of the truth.
Yeah, and one thing, I will reference a few Apocrypha books. But the one thing about scripture, statements are made and it's like, whoa, how did that happen? Like, okay,
Yeah.
God gives Abram a message, okay, your descendants are and all this, and then boom, moves on.
Yep.
Well, some of the apocryphal books that I think are historically accurate, like Jubilee and Jasher, they just talk about that history and the details of all that coming about. It doesn't say anything contrary to scripture. It just gives more
No. It's
details into the
yes.
lives of those people. I mean,
It's
into the
additional
lives.
information. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes them more real. It makes them a lot more
Yeah.
real to me anyway,
The o
because you see everything leading up to those events that are just hit on and then moved on in the
exactly.
actual
Yeah.
scripture.
Yeah, that's also what I recognize, and also while reading them. The only thing why I'm a bit more careful with apocrypha books is because that additional information is, I think, not everything true. So some things are maybe a bit imagined or fantasized, a little bit, or maybe exaggerated. You can say it also like that. So it's additional info, and it gives a lot more picture and a lot more, what is the word, flavor to something, to understand it better. But we need to be careful, I think. So I do that for myself, that I knowing that not everything is true, just that. Maybe 80% is true, but
Hmm.
not everything is true, and that's what I keep in the back of my mind, so to speak. But
Hmm.
it's very interesting, definitely. In Enoch, you can read about the fact that those watchers came down in the days of Jared, And what
Mhm.
I then know from scripture is that the Jared is the sixth from Adam. Very interesting. And it's also, what is very interesting is that they came on the earth more than 1,000 years before the flood,
Mhm.
because then the corruption already started.
Yeah, and God gave a warning, and
Yeah,
it wasn't just like it happened and then the next day God announced the flood. I mean,
yeah,
again,
exactly.
and I take this with a grain of salt based on what you just said with the Apocrypha books. But in Jasher, it says it's either Jasher or Jubilees. I'm not sure. It says that God gave either 100, was it 120 years or
Yes,
150 years. He
yes,
started talking about how he was going to send this flood
exactly.
on these people if they continued in their ways.
But
And
it,
Noah went out and pronounced this for a
yeah,
hundred. He lived to be
exactly. Yeah.
a very long
But
time. He pronounced it for 100 and some years before it
it's
actually
also,
happened.
but it's also written in scripture. It's in Genesis 6, I think 6 verse 3, something like that. There you see that God says that my spirit will not content, in that sense, not content with humanity for always. So it's still 120 years. So I think that warning was 120 years before the flood. However, if you look at it from a deeper perspective, then God is talking about 120 Jubilee years. And a Jubilee cycle is 50 years always.
Hmm.
So the Jubilee years, every 50 years is a Jubilee year. So if you multiply 120 times 50, what do you get? 6,000 years. Exactly the length of the day of man.
Interesting.
And and we are at the end of that now. Just 11 years to go. Well, 10 years, I would say, a little bit over 10 years, because we just entered in 5990, 5990. That's the year we are in now from Adam. We just entered that half September. So still 10 years to go, and then finito.
And back in the day, going back to Genesis 6, how the sons of humanity, or the sons of Elohim, took to the daughters of man and went down and corrupted them, and they bore children. The women did, called the Nephilim, that
Yep.
we've hit on before.
Yes.
And what those sons of Elohim were doing back then, I think we can draw a lot of parallels to what government leaders and what people in this day and age are doing as well. Um, I don't think there's anything new under the sun. I mean, even
No.
Jesus Christ himself said that, in the last days, it'll be like the days of Noah. And what was going
Exactly.
on in the days of Noah? Well, the sons of Elohim were coming down and messing with humanity. I mean, I
Yes.
think there are two major things, um, two major reasons why God sent the flood was this gene DNA mutation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Again, another Apocrypha book, the Book of Giants, but elsewhere it talks about how they didn't just mess with women and humanity, they messed with every creature.
Yeah.
I mean, 200 of
Exactly.
every species that there
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
and messing with God's order. They're provoking
Yeah.
God because they want to mess with God's order. The same thing
Yes.
that's going on today. Oh, a man's not a man, he can be a woman, and all that crap
Exactly. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is messing with the order of things. But also,
Yep.
these people turned away and rejected God and went to their idols, the sons of Elohim, and then they worshiped them through idols
Exactly.
of stone and wood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
actually what Abram's dad did
Yes. That's what he
for
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Nimrod. He was
Yes.
Nimrod's prince, and
Yeah.
he made those idols. And then that
He was
story
an
went.
important, yeah. He was
I
important
love,
in Nimrod's army. Yeah.
and if we get into it, I want to tell the story of Abram and what he did, based
Yeah.
in Jasher, which I just makes me
Yeah.
like Abraham a
Yeah.
lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
we want to
Yeah.
get that detailed. But I can
Yeah.
you can draw the relationship from the sons of Elohim back then, and these
Yeah.
people are that rule our world are taking their orders straight from them, just like going
Yes.
back to the Tower of
Yes.
Babel.
By the
Let's.
way, they also taught humanity at that time. They taught them tricks and tips. They taught humanity to make weapons, as an example, to make war, how to make war, things like
Mhm,
that. Also to make instruments and things like that. So they taught humanity, and they started with the bloodline of Cain. That's where
mhm,
they started. So with a descendant of Cain, his name was also Lamech, and then he had two wives. I think he was the first man with two wives. And then he had children with the two wives, Tubal Cain, what's their name? Jubal. And these people, they made deals with them, with the sons of Elohim, so that I'm going to teach you this, and then you get my daughter, things like that. And so they traded. So they at one with one wife, Lamech had a daughter named Naamah. I think she was the first mother of a Nephilim. It started with her because her name was mentioned, and when Scripture mentions a name specifically, then you know there's something going on with that always. So but fast forward, after the flood, you mentioned Abraham and Nimrod. They had indeed a very Abraham's family and Nimrod, they had a strange relationship, and that relationship was also a bit based on jealousy. There was some jealousy going on there, and then especially later, and this will tie up with the end times. So let me mention it right away. I think you know it also, that Esau, so like a great grandson of no, a grandson of Abraham,
mhm.
Esau, he was a great hunter since he was young. Very at young age, he was already a hunter, and I think he was very good and very strong. Well, I don't know if you know that, but there was some animosity between Nimrod and Abraham's family, what I said, and Esau was someone that Nimrod was jealous of. And Esau was just a teenager, and Nimrod was already 200 and something years old. So what happened is Esau knew this, so he saw his chance when Nimrod was hunting with two of his generals. Esau killed Nimrod. Did you know that? Have you read that?
No, I did not
It's
know
in
that.
it's in Jasher.
Yeah,
It's in Jasher.
I
Esau
haven't
killed
finished Jasher
Nimrod.
yet.
But
Yeah, I
this,
haven't seen that yet.
okay, this explains a lot, because first of all, Esau he ran, is that the past tense, ran to his home because he thought the whole army of Nimrod is behind me. My life is worth nothing anymore. And that is when Jacob, when he made that lentil soup,
Hmm.
then he asked him, "Give me some soup." And Jacob said, "If you give me your birthright."
Birthright. Yeah.
And people always thought, and I thought, why did he sell his birthright for a plate of soup? But now I understand, because now knowing that he killed Nimrod, he thought my life is worth nothing. They're going to find me and kill me. So that's why he thought, I mean, you can have my birthright. I will have my soup as my meal before execution. I don't know the English word of that, but that I want now, that soup, and
Last.
then I will be killed. So that's the reason why he did that. That is the
Hmm.
background.
Yeah.
That's
See that.
interesting.
See, that's what I mean about kind of, and like you
Yeah,
said, you always take it with a grain of salt. But some of the things in Scripture, it just moves from the important point to the next important point, which is, yeah,
exactly.
we're trying to, it's Scripture.
Yeah,
But there's a lot that went behind it, just like us today. There's a lot that goes into it, and why people make the decisions they make. To see some of that insight is pretty neat. It makes it
yeah.
more human. It makes it
Yes,
more
yes.
um believable. I mean, it's
True.
not that I don't believe it, but it shows you just how intricate everything is, and how
Yeah,
God just wove every emotion and thought
yeah,
into what happens. So much went
exactly.
into it, and God
Yeah.
controls it all.
And the thing is, if you look at the third eon, let's say the third eon, let's limit ourselves to the third eon for now. then you will see that the red line, the red thread in everything in the third eon is Babylon. Is that Babylonian worship thing.
Hmm.
That is the red line that connects everything with everyone in that sense, in the third eon. So if you make a connection to the end times, I've always wondered also, why do people, when they flee to the desert at the moment of in the future of the abomination of desolation, when that let me say that beast out of the sea will put himself in the temple, people will flee from Judea to the wilderness, and probably they will be safe in Edom. Edom, there is Petra, that city Petra in the rocks. And
Hmm.
people think, and I also think, still think, that there is the place where they will kept secret. Well, they will be safe. But the thing is, why are they safe there? I mean, the beast has worldwide power. So why can't he touch them there at Petra in Edom? But if you make the connection now, then you think, wait a minute. Edom is Esau. It's Esau's possession. It's his land, his descendants. So that's one. And I think that the beast out of the sea has something to do with Nimrod. I think he has something to do with Nimrod. I don't know how yet, but I don't know if you remember this, but when the push was there in the time of President
To go to
George W.
Iraq.
Bush,
To go to
yes,
Iraq. Yeah, I've
yes,
heard
and
that.
the
I've
army
heard that
went to
too.
Iraq, and then immediately when they were in Iraq, I mean, like 175,000 artifacts were stolen from the Museum of Baghdad. So you
Hmm.
think, what is going on here? And then a few days later already, most of the artifacts were already located. They were found and they were brought back to the museum. But I think approximately 3,000 of those artifacts were never found because people say they were brought back to the USA. And one of the important artifacts is the sarcophag of Gilgamesh. But who is Gilgamesh? Gilgamesh is Nimrod.
Nimrod.
Yes,
Yeah.
he is Nimrod. And I think just before the army went to Iraq, I think 1 month, not even, before the army went to Iraq, it became known that the sarcophag of Gilgamesh was found. So you put things together and you think, whoa, what are they going to do with that DNA? What are they going to do? That's the thing. It's very interesting, but I think that beast has something to do with Nimrod. And
Yeah.
that's why Edom is safe, a safe space for the beast.
Yeah, and going back, yeah, I just want to paint the picture of, how the sons of Elohim in Genesis 6 corrupted humanity, and
Yeah,
humanity became evil. But you look at the stories of Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Babylonian mythology, um, any mythology you want to speak of, they're all very similar stories
exactly.
with different names, and all of that stems from what happened, I believe, in Genesis 6, when
Yeah,
these men of renown, as Genesis calls it, giants, they're
yeah,
called elsewhere,
yeah,
wreaked havoc on the earth, and
yeah,
many
yeah,
of them were leaders, as it says, men of renown, great
yeah,
men,
yes,
half sons of Elohim, half human,
yeah,
and they went nuts, ruled the world,
yes.
and caused all sorts of evil. But
And
they are the stories of renown. Like
yeah,
when you look at, oh, how great was these people, or these gods, half gods in Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, that same thread is woven in all of those cultures, and you can get that all the way up to the occultists of today. That
Yep.
same thread is woven in from those beings that were created from the sons of Elohim.
Yes. And they were all, that's very interesting, without exception, all these Nephilim, these giants, they were all violent. They were violent, all of them. And also humanity, because humanity was also corrupted blood wise and also corrupted thinking wise in terms of making war. So it was one violent um, mess on the earth in those days, especially very closely before the flood. It's what crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was taught in Sunday school that humanity was just drinking a lot of beer and having sex with women and having
Yeah.
wild parties.
Oh,
It's a bit deeper than that. But
exactly.
going to after the flood, when Nimrod came on the scene and went to the land of, was it Shinar,
Yeah, Shinar. You mean
where they
uh
eventually built the
yeah,
Tower of
Tower of
Babel.
Babel. Yeah, Shinar. Yes.
So, they said whatever it was. I used to think it was, some DNA altering thing, or perhaps a portal, or perhaps they wanted to get it high enough to escape another judgment by flood. But in Jubilees, it actually gives the height of the Tower of Babel and how they've been working on it for 43 years. And the height, if you take a modest estimate, it's twice as high as the tallest building in the world right now, which is the
The Burj Khalif.
yes, which is like 2,700 feet, something like that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if you take a cubit to be 1 foot, which I think it was a lot more than that, it was 5,344 feet, I think Jubilee says, which is twice as high. It
Yeah.
could have been up to 4 times as high. So I really
Okay.
think they were trying to actually get to the throne room of God and
Yeah.
fight him. But regardless, the statement made in scripture says that they did it to make a name for themselves,
Exactly.
to
That's
separate
the
from
yeah.
God and make a name for themselves. And I
Yes.
find it very interesting that as you fast forward some years and King Nebuchadnezzar becomes king of Babylon, that in
Yep.
Daniel chapter 4, he goes through the same thing where he's saying, I built Babylon, I'm
Yes.
great, I did all this. And then he
Yeah.
eats grass with cattle for seven
Yeah.
seasons. And then he
Yeah.
comes and says, God can do whatever the hell he wants with the
Yes.
people of the earth
Yes.
and with
I
the
love that.
armies of
Yeah.
heaven.
Yeah.
And no one can say, what have you done? And no one can stop
Exactly.
him. That's
Yeah.
basically what he said.
Yeah.
But it was his human achievement at that
Yes.
very same place where the tower was built to build a name for themselves. That human achievement had to be struck down
Yes.
for him to come to that realization that God is
Exactly.
God and he does
Yeah.
everything. And I draw that connection to the third temple as well, because the man of lawlessness cannot get people to worship him unless he gets them to worship self first. And that's why I think, 666 is the number of humanity. And
Exactly.
Satan in the garden didn't have Adam and Eve worship him. They got
No.
them to try to become like God by a self act, by eating
Exactly.
the fruit.
Yeah.
And now
That's
Satan
it.
uses self, society, religion, all about humans attaining God instead of God being God. And so the occultist and this new age religion and what our governments are going to lead us into is self enlightenment.
That's
You
it.
can be
Yes.
like these aliens or you can be like these gods
Yeah.
that'll be disguised as aliens, I think. But you can
Yeah.
only get there by doing what we tell you to do and evolving like we evolved
Yes.
with this self
True.
enlightenment. And only
Exactly.
once he convinced, then he can say, okay, be like me, worship me, and you can get there. So it's
Yep.
all intertwined all throughout scripture from start to
Yep.
end. It's
Yes.
about
True.
self
Yeah.
being the idol that puts yourself in front of God. And then
Yeah.
Christianity, we know, is the same today because
Yeah.
it's just whitewashed and it's self
Yes.
saving yourself as
Yes.
opposed to truly trusting that God does everything.
Yes. Unbelievable. Yeah. This is a red thread in terms of worship. That red thread goes all the way until the end times, until Christ returns. That's true. And it starts, of course, I believe at least that it starts with the opening of the first seal, and then after that will be the start of the 70th week of Daniel, and there will be like that whole period in the beginning will be that fake peace, that false peace. And why is it false? Because it will feel like peace. It will feel like that. I'm sure of that. It will be very deceptive, and it will be looking and feeling very genuine. It will be feeling like that. But it will be based on self. It will be based on human will. They will, what is the word? They will attribute those that peace, that period, and that prosperity probably to
Yeah,
themselves. He
and
has
with
done it.
yes, and we have overcome the evil, and we
Yep.
have to choose to overcome that evil to set up,
Yes.
this
Exactly.
peace and prosperity.
Exactly. That's where the rubber will meet the road. It's the self. Exactly. And then it will morph through a lot of other things like war, famine, pestilences, and death. It will morph through to the worshiping of the beast. Then it will happen. So after the second, third, and fourth seal, there the opening of those, then you will see that probably that leader will be assassinated. I mean, I think you can see that clearly in scripture. And then after 3 days, that copycat thing, then his body will be animated by that spiritual being coming out of the sea. And of course, there will be also a false prophet, that spirit from the land, so from Israel. So I think it will be an Islam, well, predominantly an Islamic system, a religious system, and Islam will be the dominant part of it.
So you said, I have a question for you. You said that we're at 5990 from Adam,
Yeah.
and so how do you come to that year, and B, what do you see going on in the Middle East right now that kind of leads to that end time scenario with Islam and all that?
Okay. First of all, um, if I have a chronology series on Refajo channel. So if you follow that, it has only scriptural input, no uh, extra biblical or extra scriptural input. The only one exception, that's 70 AD, but everybody agrees with 70 AD. But apart from that, every input in that chronology from Adam to the return of Christ and beyond to the end of this eon is only scriptural information. So from there, up till now, I haven't found any mistake, and no one has been able to point out any mistake on that chronology. And according to that chronology, we are now in 5990, in the year 5990. So
Wow.
that's
So
right.
there's no gaps or anything, and that you can count all the way through. That's
All
amazing.
the way, no gaps whatsoever. Every detail, every information is from scripture. And God makes sure that that is possible for us to, with some diligent work, to really find the chronology and to work with that. God, I mean, it's God's intention. He buried information, yes, but with diligent seeking, you can find it and you can build up a chronology. So yeah, I think there are some very important assumptions that need to be taken into account, and one of them, as an example, is that in Scripture, a period. Let's say, let me mention one example. Um, when God said to Noah, "Go in the ark," and then in 7 days, I will close the door myself, and then the flood comes. But that 7 days scripturally is for us 6 days, because we count exclusively and scripture counts inclusively. What do I mean? A, a baby boy, when did he have to be circumcised? On the 8th day. But on the 8th day, let's say he's born on Sunday. We would say on the 8th day is not the next Sunday, because that would be the 7th day for us, but it would be the Monday after that, right? But that's not scriptural. Scripture says the 8th day because they include that Sunday when they start counting. It's inclusive. So from Sunday to Sunday is 8 days. So he had, for us, it's 7 days. You see the point? So you don't count that Sunday. If you go Sunday to Monday, it's 1 day to us. But in scripture, it's 2 days. So those assumptions are very important when you work with chronology, with periods, mentioning of periods, and also the ages. When Adam was 130 years old, he begot Seth. But that 130 year, he was not 130 years yet. He was in his 130th year. Those assumptions are very important. So you have to really calculate with those things. So assumptions need to be taken into account, but those assumptions need to also be scriptural. So this is just an example.
Yeah, the
So
Jubilee.
that's why I know it's 5990 up till now.
Yeah. The Book of Jubilees, I have not done or counted anything like that, but they make it easier because they just count by Jubilees and
Yeah.
when everything happened. So
Okay. And what year
I
are
have
they arriving at that time? Not
oh,
sure.
no, I haven't. I
Okay.
haven't studied it. I just thought it
Okay.
was interesting that they say he was 4 Jubilees and 4 weeks. I don't know how that plays in the 4 weeks and stuff like that. But I just thought it was interesting that
Okay.
that they
Nice.
that they give that information. But Scripture does too, of course. They give that
Oh yeah.
information, which just leads so much planning to it. I mean,
Yep.
you look at the
Yep.
detail. I mean, you talk about a God that plans each and every detail of every life. You
Exactly.
can't have
Yes.
this without
Yes.
that. And it
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
and it really goes shh. And it really goes. I was shushing my dog, not you.
Yeah, I know. I could
it
hear
really
the bark.
it really goes to what we're talking about. I always try to bring it back to the sovereignty of God against man's free will, because that's what it's all about. It's about, from the very beginning, from people going against and denying God to go to these small g gods,
Yeah.
and us today doing the same thing with self, is woven throughout everything we do and every deception there is. The Apostle Paul wrote against self righteousness more than anything. He wrote entire letters
Exactly. Yeah.
keeping self, law, the flesh out of his message.
Exactly. Yeah.
And everything that we come to, from what you were talking about, the chronology, to prophecy that Christians love, to every detail of these people's lives woven together in a time fabric that's so unique and so exact. You can't get any of that without the
True.
complete and utter sovereignty of God, apart from man doing anything independently of God. And yet
Amen.
people want
Yep.
to put their faith in prophecy, and yet they don't think that God's sovereign. How can you believe in prophecy if God
Exactly.
isn't sovereign and
Yeah.
man can do what he wants? It makes no sense. It just shows you how the lie of self is it. That's the
Yeah.
deception. And
And it
any
blinds their
deception,
eyes. It
yeah.
blinds them totally because they don't see the contradictions at all.
And any deception is going to have that element in self in it. And the
Yes.
only way to know that you won't fall for that end time deception is to know, or any deception with regard to God, is to know that God does absolutely everything.
Yes. Absolutely. Indeed. Indeed. Absolutely. And also in a structured way and in a very symmetrical way as well. So your other question was about the Middle East. Well, in this day and age, I'm a
Hmm.
bit careful to talk too deeply about that, of course. But what you see in the Middle East currently, I mean, it's like I have a Dutch word, but I don't know how to translate that in English. It's like a barrel of um what is the word? That thing that is explosive, like dynamite, like
Yeah,
dynamite,
like
like a
ready to
barrel of dynamite.
explode. Yeah.
It's waiting to be exploding.
Hmm.
So I think that's going on there. What we see now is especially deception. It's deception, definitely, on both sides, if you know what I mean. And I think that the country we see now that everyone knows, the country that is in the center of attention, that is not the country of God yet. I mean, the land is of God, yes, that is God's land, but the people are, of course, not God's people on the one hand, but it's even worse than that. I think these things that you see are attempts, and they're going to go far with that, attempts to establish a millennial kingdom, so called, without God. So from of themselves, they are not willing to wait for God to do it in His timing. They want to do it in their timing, and they want to do it in their own power. And that's what you see right now in the Middle East. So that's how I see it. And I mean, there are some very exciting developments right now, because I've seen a video where Iran raised a flag, the black flag, first time in history, the black flag of the Mahdi, the Mahdi. That is the Muslim leader, Messiah, the
Sorry. Yeah.
Muslim Messiah. Yeah, and this is huge. This is really huge, because I mean, this is a huge indicator also where we are, because if Iran, I don't know if you know Islam a little bit, but there are two very important factions. There are the Shiites, the Shia, and the Sunni Muslims. And
Hmm.
Sunni is by far the greatest faction, the greatest portion. But the two leaders of the Sunni part is you could say Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Those two are the leaders, you could say, as countries, as nations. And Iran is the leader of the Shia part. And those two, they don't get along at all, at all. They have a huge animosity towards each other. So there is a vision in Daniel 8 talking about a ram with two horns, of which the second horn was bigger than the first horn. And you see that I mean, this is crazy stuff. This ram is Iran, is Persia. Persia is Iran. So that's the ram, and that ram is powerful. And that second horn is even greater. So that's a greater leader that still has to come on the scene. Probably that will be that Mahdi. However, if Sunni is not going to accept that Mahdi, that Messiah from the Shia part. They are not going to accept him at all. So I think there's going to be a huge attack on Iran from another country. And that country will be very important in the end times. And that country is Turkey. Very important what will happen in the end times. Turkey will play a very pivotal role in the end times, especially religion wise. So they will attack Iran, and that will be the goat with one horn, and they will really, with such a speed, he will penetrate the ram. You can read that in Daniel 8. Very interesting. And you could say that happened in the past. Yes, you know how prophecy works. It is very often multi-layered. So it has a meaning back then, but it also has a meaning under the ground, another layer for the future. And in, I think, verse 15 through 17, you can read that this is a prophecy also for the times of the end. So this will happen. And I think that goat with the one horn is Turkey. And that ram with the two horns is Persia or Iran. So these things are very close now, super close. I mean, I can assure you that the Sunnis will not accept the Messiah of the Shia. No way. So there will be like something. So they will be conquered, I think, Iran by Turkey. Turkey has a huge army, very strong army. And I think by that they will form a kind of a coalition later, especially when that war or that invasion of Gog, of Magog, Ezekiel 38, 39 will happen. They will invade Israel from the north. And that will include Turkey and Iran.
And
So,
that we know that there's a battle of, well, it doesn't really happen, but Gog and Magog after the 1,000 years.
yes,
Now
that's
you're
another
speak
one
you're speaking of the one
in the
that
end
leads
times.
up to the millennium.
Yes, yes. There will be one in the end times and one at the end of the millennium. Yes. There it talks about Gog and Magog. But in Ezekiel 38, 39, it talks about Gog of the land of Magog. So that's different.
Okay. So the things playing out in the Middle East really look to be coming together for that. And it could happen tomorrow, it could happen 3 years from now.
Well, I can be wrong about this, but up till now, my thinking is that prophecy regarding concerning Israel is not fulfilled, will not be fulfilled, and is never fulfilled within the administration we are living on now, within this secret administration that will end with the snatching away. I think
So you think
that,
it'll happen after the snatching away?
yes. So I'm talking about fulfillment of prophecy. What we see now is all the pieces are put on the board, on the chessboard. You know, all the whole scenario is being made ready and being prepared for all that will happen in the end times. But it's not fulfillment of certain prophecy yet. One very important and well-known prophecy is Isaiah 17 verse 1, where it talks about the total destruction of Damascus. And Damascus is the oldest city in the world that is continuously inhabited. It's the oldest city, maybe already 4,000, more than 4,000 years old. But Damascus will be, and it has never been fulfilled that yet, that prophecy. So it will be fulfilled in the end times, I think after the snatching away also. But it's very
Now,
close. It's very close.
Damascus has been in some battles and been compromised, but it's never been wiped off
Exactly.
the face of the earth like Isaiah says. Correct?
Yes. True. True. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, these things are close. I think they are waiting to happen, and I still think again. I'm still thinking what prophecy I know of, at least, has been fulfilled within this secret administration. I cannot come up with one. There's only one question mark with me, and that is Psalms 83. Psalm 83 talks about countries in the immediate vicinity of Israel, just immediately around Israel, like Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, and how they want to destroy Israel. And there's one Bible teacher I know. He says that has been fulfilled just a couple of days after Israel became a nation in 48. But that's true that these nations, they were attacking Israel after only a week of being a nation. So, but I don't know if that was the fulfillment of that Psalm 83 prophecy. I'm not sure. Not sure.
Hmm.
It's possible. It's possible. So, but for the rest, I don't know of any prophecy that has been fulfilled. So these are very interesting times we live in. Yeah, you see so clearly that all the pieces are put together, and I have to say there's still one huge question mark with me, at least, with regard to the USA. The role of the USA is so mysterious
Mm.
in my view, because the USA is still by far the strongest country on earth. I can tell you easy, hands down. They have hidden things that people don't know about, and only military knows. So I know they are the strongest. But the thing is, something must happen. Something must happen there that they will not be the leading country anymore. Not sure what it is, but something will happen. And if you look at how they are spiritually now, USA, wow, that's that's terrible. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So in the Middle East, yeah, it's you see they are looking at each other. They are like they are spying on each other. Let me put it like that. And Israel is a very strong, militarily very strong nation. I mean, I think the strongest nation in that area by easy, easy.
Yeah.
Maybe I think one of the strongest in the world.
Yeah, and you look at the deception. I mean, we know that we have people in our for years that have been trying to destroy our country from within, and
Yes,
opening the borders, and
yes,
well, everything else, everything
yeah,
they've done really
yeah,
has
yeah,
been to weaken us. And you look at what happened that started this whole thing in Israel is a deception. I mean,
yes,
it's not a deception in the sense that it didn't happen, because it happened, but to think that Israel, being as powerful and as on edge as they have always been for thousands of years, living, or let's say since they became a nation again, living in an area where you have to be on guard constantly to
yes,
let your guard down and allow that to happen, and then have this kind of response is
yes,
definitely fishy.
yeah.
But the only people that aren't in on it are those innocently that are innocent and getting killed. Those
It's
are the people
terrible.
that
Yeah,
aren't in on it.
yeah. So false flags are so frequent nowadays, everywhere. I would say things that happen under false pretense, but there are casualties. There are always
Yeah.
casualties. It's
Oh yeah.
terrible. It's
The
terrible. Yeah.
destruction and death is real. It's just the
Yes.
reasons
The
behind it
reasons. Yes.
are not.
Yes.
And that's just unfortunate for the innocent people that have to bear the brunt of that.
Yes. By the way, but I have to add that if you look at everything that's happening, no matter how painful it is, if you look at it from the 40,000 view, let me put it foot view, then you could say, okay, God is the director of everything, and all these casualties, all these people who were killed innocently, they will be resurrected and they will be what is the word, reimbursed, is that the word? They will be
Sure.
royally reimbursed. They will be put on the new earth, and they will lead a fantastic life. So and by the way, in the time that they are dead, no matter how long that is, in their experience, it's not even a second, not even a second. So I want to add that all also, because for people, for the listeners and the watchers to realize that God has everything under control, and He is directing everything, and He will also make everything right at the end. He will do it. It's His responsibility.
And he does that for absolutely everyone. We all
Exactly.
have to go through whatever level of evil that God has decided
Yes.
for us to go through, and he
Yes.
will give us a greater joy that we can't even imagine, based specifically on what we went through in
Yes.
that evil form. And we'll find out that, I know it's hard to say now, but we'll have a deeper joy and a
Oh,
deeper
yes.
understanding of God, having gone through whatever evil that we've gone through and what those people
Exactly.
have to go through
Yes.
than we would
And
have had if they never had that experience.
and also the other way around, because people in this day and age, as an example, who became rich at the expense of others, people who killed at the expense of others in order to get more power, whatever, and what reason, all those people, the peoples who do these crimes, they will also pay for them. When they are standing at the great white throne, oh boy, you will pay, and it will be dearly. You will feel it. It will be terrible because just think about a spine that is totally crooked, and when it has to be put straight again, oh boy, that will hurt. So that's also this, the other side of the same coin. God will put everything straight. So yes, on the one hand, for the people who have suffered at the hands of these people, also for these people on the other hand, they will be put straight also, and that will hurt like hell,
Mhm.
like imaginary hell. Yes.
Yeah,
God,
and
God is righteous. That's the point. He is righteous, and he will make things right.
absolutely. And for everyone, for every
Exactly.
creature that he ever created.
Yes, exactly.
But yes, many will have to go through judgment, and it won't be pleasant, but it is correction
Exactly.
in
It is
the end.
correction. It's all correction. And correction can hurt, yes, yes, but it's necessary. So going back to the link between past and future, if you want, um, I would say that it is to me now so clear that I see also on the ground, even literally on the ground, that Babylonian worship. I see that all through the whole third eon, and it started with Babylon, and it will end with Babylon. Babylon, the destruction of Babylon will be the last thing, if you want, of this eon. I mean, I would say together with Armageddon, that will be the last thing in terms of judgment. So that's why I keep on. I maintain my viewpoint that we are still in the Roman Empire, political wise. We are still in the Roman Empire since the Roman Empire came into existence, but it is a Roman Empire in another way, and it has gone underground. So we haven't noticed that. But everything was and still is the Roman Empire. All the land on earth belonged first to the Queen of Britain, and through via the Queen, it belonged to the Vatican. So things like that. And all the time on the ground in secret, we still lived in the Roman Empire. And I believe also looking at the statue, the what is the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, there are no gaps. There are no gaps between the empires. Because what should be the gap? We are still in the eras of the nations, and it started with Nebuchadnezzar, political wise, and it will end with the beast in the end times. That's why where it will end. And religion wise, it started with the early religions like Buddhism and with guys as Confucius and Zarathustra and etc., and Hinduism, etc. And it will end with that world religion, one world religion in the end times.
Well, there's no doubt that the end time world religion and what these people are doing has been in secret and
Yep.
underground for years.
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's their whole agenda, is the way they communicate. Um, as far as the I don't know much about that. I haven't done a deep study on it, but I know from what I've looked at that what you see going on in secret in the occult, and who these people, whether it's the Freemasons
Oh
or
yeah.
um, all these secret societies and occult, you listen to what their core beliefs are. I mean, some of them actually go back and talk about Nimrod and talk about the
Yep.
Tower of Babel, and they talk about these small g gods and this self enlightenment that is just woven through all of Scripture. So
Yeah.
they keep that a secret, just like Satan kept, Adam and Eve from worship. He keeps that a secret, and he keeps it a secret by having them focus on self. He keeps
Yes.
it a secret today by having people focus on self. That's why society is driven by selfies and the
Yeah.
self-made man, and
Yeah.
that's been going on for years.
Yeah.
Self-religion. Every religion that there is self. It's self. It's
Self-centered. Yes.
man's attempt to get to God. Every
Yes.
religion has things
Yes.
you have to do to get you in, that if other people don't do it, they're not. It's all about self. None of it
Yes.
is about God being God, as Paul says in Acts 17, when he destroys religion and says, you cannot give to God anything that he hasn't first given to you. That's in Romans
Exactly.
11. But he
Yes.
said, God is not attended by human hands. That means that he's not attended by human hands. He doesn't need you to do anything, because he gives to you life and breath and all, and he gives that
Exactly.
to all. And we
Yes.
live and move and have our being and exist
In
in
him.
him. So
Yes.
there's no religion takes you out of him in order for you to get to him. And
Yes.
that's self. And that's what masks everything, is self.
Yes. And a
But
very important consequence of self is pride.
yes, and that's what leads to looking for that self enlightenment that Satan
Exactly.
will
Yes.
produce, that these small g gods, that the Freemasons, that all these people that do this in secret promote. If you
Yes.
look into it, it's the same
Yes.
thing.
And looking at those small g gods, I think looking at Revelation 12, you read about a woman clothed with a sun. That is a depiction of believing Israel, faithful Israel. But there is a dragon also, that's Satan, that's being told that there in the same chapter. But his tail is sweeping one third of the stars and cast them onto the earth. So what stars is that? I think it's heavenly or celestial beings. So celestial beings will be coming onto the earth before the dragon himself, the serpent, is cast on the earth. So before he comes on the earth at the, I would say at the half midpoint of the 7 years, there will be other beings on the earth. They will be cast on the earth, and they will already, as you said, they will maybe impersonate aliens or whatever, and they will be also having their contribution, if you want, to what will happen in the end times, and that will be crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
also already in the first half of that 7 years, it will be crazy. Crazy stuff will happen. That's what I
Oh,
think.
people will see things that, they saw back in the times of Noah. I mean, I
Exactly.
mentioned it already, but it's not just, Jesus saying that people are going to be drinking beer and having sex and not worrying about God. I mean, maybe that's part of it, but as in the days of Noah, they saw some crazy shit. I mean,
Yeah.
giants eating people. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
DNA being messed with.
Yes.
Who knows
Exactly.
what creatures were around at that time that you can look at if you do some research, that they've been
Yeah.
DNA manipulating
Yeah.
God's creation in secret
And back
all
then,
throughout the last few
back,
years,
yes.
hundreds, well, not
And
hundreds of years maybe, but you can you could see it everywhere if you look
yeah,
at it.
back then that was, I don't think it was primarily through technology, but in the end times it will be, and those beings and technology that will corrupt human DNA, both transhumanism and those beings that will be coming on the earth. and maybe also animals, so it will be like crazy things people will see on the streets. That's what I
Mm.
think. And that combined with maybe also some prosperity and that peace, so to speak, that peace, that fake peace. So people will think, my God, this is my time to party, to have a crazy life, things that I always wanted to do, things like that. And you will see crazy stuff on the earth. Yes, definitely, definitely. And it will be even worse, I think, than the days of Noah. That's what I think, and that's how this eon will end.
Yeah, it'll
But
get as evil as it can be
yeah,
before
exactly.
it turns.
And this
But
eon is the worst eon. We
yeah,
know
but
that.
self, another going back to self is that Christians promote it, people promote it, from other religions, and
Yes.
people that don't have a religion, they want
Yeah.
to clean up the world
Yeah.
and make it better. And that's not going to happen because Jesus Christ is going to do that.
Exactly.
It's going
Yeah.
to get as evil as it can possibly be. All the evil that God has written in it will max out, and then Jesus will come. The self
Exactly.
wants to clean it up by self and present, look at what we did
Yeah.
now. That doesn't make any sense because Jesus is coming to save the world, not congratulate it. And he's saving it
Exactly.
from the worst evil that it's ever been in, which is
Exactly.
driven
Yeah.
by
Wow. Yeah.
666,
Yeah.
humanity, and what they
Yes.
think they can do apart from God, which is
Exactly.
nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally agree. I'm totally on the same page. By the way, have you seen my special report about the snatching away and the return of Christ
The one before or just recently?
recently? Couple of
Like,
weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you see that I believe that Christ will return earlier than people normally think that he returns. He will not return at the end of the 7 years. He will return 1 year earlier. And that also coincides with the fact that the 1260 days of the Great Tribulation, that will not be the case. It will be shortened with 1 year. 1 year, 360 days. Let me put it like that. So then will Christ come. So then, because of his chosen ones, those days will be cut short. So then he will, of course, gather from all the corners of the earth. He will gather his elect and put them, and I think he will bring them in a place where they are safe. I think again, Edom. So why do I mention that? Because also I explained that the days of Noah was and the days of Lot were things that were mentioned by Christ when he was talking about the end times. It will be like the days of Noah. But if you look at all the things that were happening in the days of Noah, you can you can already easily draw the line towards the future. But also the length of the judgments. But because that judgment in the day of Noah was the flood. And if you look at the total length of the flood, it was 1 year and 10 days. And the nice thing or the interesting thing is that Jesus will come at the beginning of the last year of the 7 years, the last year. And that last year is a Sabbath year. And
Mm.
a Sabbath year before a Jubilee year, that Sabbath year is always 10 days longer. Can you imagine that? Can you feel?
Mm.
So again, at the moment Jesus comes, at the start of that Sabbath year, then the judgment, the real judgment on the nations will start. And that's the trumpet and bowl judgments. And they will last exactly 1 year and 10 days. And it will end on Yom Kippur of the year 2033. And Jesus will return just, this is only a calculation. I
Hmm.
can be wrong, but according to the chronology, he will return in September, beginning September of 2032. So And then from 33 to 34, there will be the Jubilee year as the last year, the 6,000th year from Adam. And that is the year in which this eon will end. So we are very close at the end of this eon already, very close. And I think a lot has been crammed. All the things that will happen in Revelation, I mean, almost all the things, they have been crammed together to happen in a very short period.
Yeah.
And that's why John says it will happen swiftly.
Yeah, once it
Swiftly.
starts, it'll happen
Yeah,
fast because it's all in place. It's all getting in
exactly.
place right now. And
Yes.
I think once the snatching away occurs, then it'll be full force, and
Yes. Yes.
it'll just be like a snowball going down a hill, just
Exactly. Yeah.
taking
But
all the
because,
prophecy with it.
yeah, the withholder has been removed. So now it's free play. It's like the genie is out of the bottle and it's going to be crazy. That's what I think as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
a lot is happening right now already, and a lot behind the scenes also. Let's not go there now, but it's a lot happening behind the scenes, and in the world, and those things, if you know a little bit about them, and I know that you know it, that then you see that all those things they will burst forth all of a sudden. And my suspicion, just my suspicion, is that the moment these things will burst forth from behind the scenes to in front of the scenes, that is approximately the same period of the snatching away.
yeah, I
That's what
I
I
agree
think.
with that. I agree
Because
with that too.
these developments, when they burst forth from behind the scenes, I think they will take with them a huge change on earth. There will be a huge, something will change in the whole atmosphere on the earth. It will change. And people will know, people who are, let's say, quite conscious. My brother is one of them. He is conscious, he knows. So he keeps an eye on where Peter is. So I know that. So he will be feeling like something has happened here. Something has changed. Peter, let me call Peter. Let me see if he's still here. I think like that. I think that will happen. If people are conscious, they will know, they will feel something has changed on the earth. And that is, I think, those energies, those frequencies, vibrations of good that we have never felt before. That will come on the earth and that will change things. And that will be also one of the bigger parts of the deception that God himself will send on the earth, according to Second Thessalonians 2, 9, 10, 11, something like that. So there's a lot boiling.
There is, there is indeed,
Oh
and
yeah.
when things do go down, I mean, confusion is the name of the game. I
Yeah.
think that God confused the language of people at Babel, and I think that these same small g gods that rule and are building this Tower of Babel with technology, um, so we can say, are going to use confusion to bring people to that one world system again. So God
Yes.
used confusion to destroy it. They're going to use confusion to get people in line. And you look at every prediction and every theory out there. I mean, there's a million different ways that this is going to go down. And
Yes.
it keeps people confused. And once it does go down, they can steer them in any direction they want because they've
Yeah.
all heard it and they'll all have their theories. And then when someone comes and makes sense of it, then, they'll have them.
Exactly. Exactly. And by the way, looking at God's structure, his way of thinking and operating, the symmetrical and structured way, in the beginning at the Tower of Babel, he confused their languages and he spread them so that they had to spread on the earth. So they had to find their own place, so to speak. And then an earthquake came in the days of Peleg, and that tore the continent earth apart, and it floated, all the continent they floated apart from each other. Let me put it like that. So now we have continents, we have islands, etc. in the future, it will be totally coming back. It will be converging again. And not only that, I believe that through technology, also the languages will be converging.
Hmm.
Because thanks to, I think, quantum technology, I think there will be a possibility, a quantum module called quantum language, that we will be able, or humanity will be able to speak with each other through technology, and they can understand each other effortlessly. That's what I think. So everything will come together, and also I think that through technology, the city of Babylon will be rebuilt very fast because of technology. It will be rebuilt very fast. That's what I think. So it will be huge. It will become huge, and people will flock. They will go, all of them, to Babylon because there is the wealth, there is the prosperity, and exactly the same thing where everyone went away. They diverged from Babylon in the beginning. In the end times, they will come back to Babylon, and the language will come back, and the continents, through the earthquakes in the future, they will come back also. So this is God's structure, man. This is God's symmetry. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
from start to finish.
Oh yes, oh yes, he's the director. Well, let's leave it at that then.
Yeah, perfect.
um, and maybe next time we can talk about some of Paul's epistles,
Yeah,
because that
yeah,
is
maybe we'll get back to that,
yeah, I
which I
think I
want to.
think
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
want to
where
do.
we are. Let's say that's our home base.
Yeah,
So let's do
absolutely.
that next time. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Scott. I really appreciate it. And we'll keep in touch, definitely.
Yeah, you too, Peter. I appreciate it. It's always great talking to you.
Likewise, definitely. All right, brother. All the best. See
All right,
you.
you too. Take care, man.
Thank you. Bye bye.